Hey there, we're the Westlaw Pirates and welcome to the show. We're here to share our thoughts on Northwestern athletics and college sports with thoughts and analysis from the visceral to the statistical. We run our tailgate with the red pirate flag flying high above as we give no quarter, especially the fourth. I'm Sam Walter.
I'm John Lacombe.
And I'm Eric Skoskauspo.
At the end of our episode last week, we teased a potentially very, very special episode tonight, and I think we got a good one in store for you. We are thrilled to be joined in just a few moments by new Northwestern Athletic Director Mark Jackson. Very, very excited to welcome him onto the show. And without any further ado, let's just go to him right now. Well, we are thrilled tonight to be joined by the new athletic director for Northwestern, Mark Jackson. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Hey, my pleasure. I'm happy to be on. Know a lot about you guys, heard a lot of great things about how loyal you've been, and kind of been with us through thick and thin, and appreciate that. And with kind of 90 days under my belt, I've done a lot of listening and learning, and so excited to be a part of this tonight as well.
I mean, you mentioned 90 days. It's been a pretty busy and eventful 90 days. Since you've been on campus, we've got a national championship in field hockey, a tremendous win this past weekend against Illinois in basketball. How has that felt for you coming in new into this culture and into this, kind of really great time in Northwestern sports?
Yeah, just very fortunate, I guess, to having been very familiar with, all that Northwestern represents, but now to get to know particularly these head coaches on a much closer level, and knowing, I would say, arguably, the top caliber head coaches in the country, top to bottom, and to get to watch them work and to see Tracy Fuchs do what she does, and you see this kind of season Chris Collins is putting together, and those are just two examples, but this corral of head coaches, I think it speaks volumes about what we're about. And you look at how long they've been here and the success that they've had across the board. It's a pleasure to come to work every day and watch them work. So I was fortunate to have a front row seat, for a national championship within a couple of months, and it wasn't just even the championship, right? It was the regular season as well, where they just dominated. So it's been a blast to be a part of.
When we're talking about coaching too, I mean, obviously we're aware that not only do you have some coaching in your own background, but you've been, and we hope to get to it later, but you've spent some time with some pretty well-known and pretty well-regarded coaches in your time. I should say right off the bat, though, and this is kind of, I guess, is maybe climbing in the Wayback Machine a little bit here, because we're so curious about getting into kind of your history and the road that's led you here. I just want to say, I am a son of New Hampshire, a son of New England. I'm proud that tonight the power balance of the podcast has shifted solidly to New England. Scuzz is Minnesota, Sam's Colorado, but tonight this is a New England podcast. I'm happy.
There you go. The cradle of champions.
That's right, 100%. And it warms my heart to see, looking at your biography, see Massachusetts, Maine, Connecticut represented. But we're just, kind of using that as a way to get into it. We'd love to hear you talk about kind of your New England upbringing, your path, and how it led you to a career in athletics.
Yeah, it's something I take great pride in, where I grew up and where I'm from. And to this day, it's funny. I just had one of my lifelong high school best friends. He was here visiting with his family from Boston this weekend, so I got to show off campus in Chicago, and we went to the game on Friday night, which was great. And so I grew up in a small town, Mansfield, Massachusetts, right in the shadows of Foxborough Stadium. I was fortunate, to go to Colby College and play Division III football, and had some great memories there. But while at Colby, something triggered in me about sports and a career, and I started calling around, and was fortunate to get an internship with the Patriots, which was literally 10 minutes from where I grew up, right the same year when the Crafts bought the team. And so I was one of the first interns that got to pick Mr. Kraft up at the airport and got to see, Coach Parcells when he was getting started. And then I landed a full-time job there, and that transitioned from Parcells to Pete Carroll, and then ultimately to Bill Belichick. So within, 4 or 5 years, man, I had exposure to 3 Hall of Fame head coaches in a world-class organization that went on to, win a bunch of Super Bowls. So, yeah, that exposure and that connection to the Kraft family and the Patriots still pays dividends to this day. Jonathan Kraft actually had his daughter go to Kellogg, and they work, because of the NFL circles and what the Ryan family does with the Bears as a minority owner. There's all kinds of synergies that you just never know going to connect down the road. But yeah, very, very fortunate at a young age to get exposure to some world-class coaches and organizations.
We're aware that obviously one of the stops there is USC. You spent a lot of time there. Of course, you then move on to Villanova, where we're incredibly aware. I think most of Northwestern Nation is, but for any Northwestern fans who aren't, you are obviously extremely highly regarded within the world of college athletics. You received the Under Armour Athletic Director of the Year award in 2020 from the National Association of College Directors of Athletics. We know that your name has come up multiple times. When certain high profile athletic director positions have opened up, like your name is a name that has been mentioned. And we're, of course, very familiar with the fact that you have done fantastic work with Villanova, which is, like Northwestern, a renowned academic institution and has excellent athletics. So with all that said, why Northwestern? What was it about this job that spoke to you? What was it that made you want to take this plunge and come to Evanston?
Yeah, I had been paying attention to it for a while. Jim Phillips was somebody I had always looked up to in my career, and I, obviously saw the work that he had done here. And I actually went for the job when Jim took the commissioner position with the ACC, and didn't get much traction around it, but it always had me connected to it and watching it. And for me, the idea of being in an elite academic fit, as you mentioned, sort of the profile based on where I had been at, elite private academics between USC, Villanova. I felt like that was going to be the right type of transition for me if I were ever to leave Villanova. And look, we love Villanova. It's a huge part of not only my life, but my family's life. So it was not an easy decision. But when you weigh in, the number 6 institution in the world, you weigh in the fact that you're playing in the top athletic conference in the country. You're about to build an $850 million football stadium. You're in a world-class city in Chicago, maybe one of the most influential alumni bases in the world. Like, all those things factor in that kind of just, when you sit down around the table with now kind of my adult 4 children and my wife, it was a little bit of a no-brainer. A very, very difficult place to leave, but when you combine all that Northwestern offers, it's really, really difficult to turn that down.
Well, and now at this point in college athletics, there's just so much. I don't know if upheaval is the right word, but so many new challenges that are emerging. Obviously, NIL being a big one that we wanted to make sure we asked you about. Certainly, that started to come into play while you were at Villanova, but it really feels like that revolution is taking hold, and the impacts are coming down, much more immensely in this particular season as we go forward. And is there a moment, over the last couple of years that the shift or the potential shifts really hit you, and how are you thinking about NIL as you come into to NU?
Yeah, first of all, we're going to take an attitude to embrace it. I look at this as like an unbelievable opportunity. Yeah, it's challenging, it's different, it's turbulent. There's not a lot of structure around it right now, but if you have the attitude, well, it's never going to get the way it used to be, or it's never going to be the same, and you kind of bemoan all that is going along with it, it just works against you. And as the leader of the department, we're going to embrace it. We're going to have the right attitude, because I think, based on what I just outlined about all the ingredients that Northwestern has, when the fact that I can look across the parking lot at Kellogg and tap into these unbelievable entrepreneurial mindsets and research and everything, like, we're going to take this on, and we're going to do it, in a uniquely Northwestern way, but we're going to embrace the challenge and thrive in it. Like, I'm not here to make sure we just survive in the Big Ten. I want to thrive in the Big Ten, and to do that, you have to have the right approach and the right attitude. And it revolves around everything. It doesn't mean, we compromise our academic mission. It doesn't mean we compromise our principles. Those are our foundational elements. But we do have to have another mindset about revenue generation, creating long-term viable revenue through this unbelievable opportunity with a new football stadium, and to, again, tap into our donor base, and to do things in a way that will put us ahead. So I can't wait for the challenge. Like I said, I've done a lot of listening and evaluating over the first couple months, and I'm hoping I'm at a turning point now as we transition from the traditional NIL collective to institutional rev share, assuming that this House case settles in April. I think Northwestern's uniquely positioned to handle this really well, and I can't wait to take it on. It's been an evolution without a lot of structure and without a lot of balance, but I do see that day coming where the playing field gets a little bit more level because of the institutional rev share and the maximums you can spend. That it should put us in a position of strength.
At this point, kind of over the past few years, True and you, the Northwestern collective, we've spoken with Jacob Schmidt several times. What's your relationship with True and you been in the past? And obviously, things are changing rapidly, and it's going to continue to evolve. But how does that relationship exist in your world?
Yeah, Jacob, first of all, I got to commend him. He's done an unbelievable job, and some very generous donors that have gotten behind the True NU program. Jacob was one of the first calls I made when I took the job, and since then there's been a consistent communication with Jacob and our department to work very, very closely together, particularly as it relates to this transition from which was an outside collective to now an internal spend. So we have to be in lockstep, particularly over these next 6 months. So I think, and I have to give Pat Goss a ton of credit too. Pat, you all know, is legendary golf director, but also served as an interim AD and is helping me with everything across the board, but particularly as it relates to building a system to share revenue, building a system to manage the cap and look at fair market value analysis. So I would say he probably talks to Jacob 2 or 3 times a day, or if they're not meeting in person somewhere. So it's a very, very consistent communication between the two worlds.
I know that Scuzz has good questions he wants to ask about admissions related stuff. I realize, though, that before we do that, the things that you've mentioned in your past couple of answers, I realize that for some of our listeners, like, this is probably going over some people's heads in terms of the ground has been shifting. We know this from talking with Jacob. The ground has been shifting on NIL so rapidly between our feet. Can you you're mentioning, for example, this transition to rev share and this decision that may be coming down. Can you just educate us? Like, what are these things? Where are we right now? And what are these things that you're what is this ball that you're waiting for to drop here?
Yeah, we know there's been, a preliminary summary of the House case, right? And so the House case was based on a student athlete, last name House, that took on, the NCAA and the Power Four conferences about name, image, and likeness. And Judge Wilkins has been reviewing that case and gave a preliminary summary that we believe in April at some point, the final summary will come out and will allow for the first time in college history, collegiate athletics history, for a revenue for an institution to share revenue to student athletes. She's built in parameters into that summary, into the preliminary summary, that has put sort of a cap on what the spend is That was derived from kind of an average summary of what the autonomy for conferences raise and what percentage should go back to student athletes, and that's what we're in the midst of figuring out right now, based on some estimates where we think each football program the autonomy for might end up, or basketball right on down the line. So we're doing a lot of work there to prepare for that, and from every indication that case will get settled, and we'll be in a position to share revenue with our athletes starting this summer. So that's kind of a 40,000 foot viewpoint of it. It also deals with scholarship increases, roster size, limitations. There's a lot that plays into it. And we're doing a lot of modeling, doing a lot of communicating internally, and communicating externally as well to folks that are connected to the collective about how we pull that all together so that we're ready to go once this case gets settled. Does that give you a better idea of where we're coming from?
It does, and at the same time, I think we find ourselves listening to this, and all our listeners too, and being like, this must just be an unbelievably chaotic. I can only imagine. I mean, you've just taken this job, and all of these things are about to come down, and you're talking about modeling, and I'm just like, how is this from your chair as athletic director? What is it like to navigate all these things?
I enjoy it. I mean, I like the idea of the entrepreneurial aspect of this in a sort of unique way. I say entrepreneurial. It's that's the mindset. It will be very much institutional. I'm not making these decisions, trust me, like in some vacuum, as a small startup, right? This is a huge commitment that requires buy-in from our trustees and our president and our university finance people and across the board, which fortunately we have tremendous support there. But I'll say the other thing that I take comfort in is the leadership of the Big Ten Conference and Commissioner Petiti, particularly. When I first came in, my first few meetings there, I was blown away by how advanced Tony's conversations were within the conference, being prepared for this, understanding the case, understanding how we're going to implement it, how we're going to enforce a potential salary cap, how we're going to handle fair market value analysis for true NIL deals. How does that impact the cap? You're right, it is complex, but and I have to be careful because I'm assuming that everybody knows the sort of the baseline of this, but a lot of people don't. But Tony does, and knows it really well and communicates it really well to all the members of the Big Ten. So I've learned a lot in 3 months. I'm really excited for the future of this. I think we have a good team internally in the department, and we have a donor base and a fan base that wants to see us, like I said, thrive in the Big Ten. This isn't something where we're just along for the ride.
On a very base level, as a fan, just the I'll just say the clear proactivity and confidence with which you all are addressing this and thinking about this and being forward and on the front foot is quite reassuring. I think NIL is something that many NU fans, particularly football fans, have been wringing their hands about for the last couple of years. Yeah. Just concerned. Yeah. Well, and historically, right, Northwestern has not been a school with a tremendous amount of athletic resources, and so it's a point of concern. Another point of concern, which you seem to have already really had a major impact in these first 90 days, is the transfer portal. And we're aware that work has been done with admissions, with the university president, et cetera, to align dates such that the winter quarter transfer admissions process now can align with the winter transfer portal window for football specifically. And I think broadly folks are really excited about this because it feels like a competitive boost that's Northwestern hasn't lost a lot of players to the portal over the last couple of years, but we haven't gotten very many either. And at the same time, there's a segment of our fan base we've heard from, or from the fan base, I should say, we've heard from, who are reading this as like a relaxing of academic standards. We don't think that's the right way to interpret it, but we'd love if you could expand on how this kind of gargantuan accomplishment in our perspective came to be, and what the impacts of this change are.
Yeah, and that's for sure not a compromise on our academic standard. That's not accurate, right? We're going to stay committed to recruiting an elite student first and athlete, and we're all going through this for the first time, right? As an institution, and I can't speak to what's happened here before, but I want to really be strategic in our communications, consistent in our communications, transparent in our communications with what we're facing, and whether that's to the president, to the board, or to our provost, about the realities and what each program needs to succeed. And so there's a lot of communication with us and admissions right now, and understanding these windows that we have to take advantage of, particularly on a quarter system. It can make it really tight, right? When the transfer portal starts and all of a sudden you start classes in early January, those windows are tight. And there's been a sense of collaboration that I felt from all areas of campus, that we're gonna try and be competitive, but at the same time, we're not going to take a step back and take student athletes that aren't a fit for us, and I'm learning still what that means, necessarily how much risk, can we take? But I'll say this, with a, back-to-back 98% graduation success rates, our coaches know the right type of student athlete to recruit here, right? They've proven it. They've been here. Dave is an example of somebody that hasn't been here a long time, but understands that as if he's been here for 20 years. He's not looking to compromise that, and none of us are. We've proven, right? You've seen it in field hockey and lacrosse and softball, that we can recruit an elite student athlete and compete to win national championships. So we're learning a lot. We're learning a lot about the admissions cycle. I'll know a lot more, 2 or 3 weeks from now, when things start to settle down. We're right in the middle of it right now, but yeah, there hasn't been any roadblocks or hurdles in terms of just having meaningful conversations. Similarly, that's the admissions piece, and similarly on the marketplace piece too. Like the whole industry, there's been no transparency, right? We've all heard about collectives and what student athletes have been paid here. You hear this, you hear that. Well, I think as a year from now, if we could fast forward, you're going to have a clearinghouse that's going to establish true market data for us. So, if we let's get back on the line a year from now, and I'll know a lot more, and I'll be able to say with a lot more confidence where we stand with an admission standpoint, and just kind of an overall marketplace standpoint.
We'd love to kind of talk about the big thing that's coming down the pike for Northwestern, and that's obviously the new Ryan Field, which just from everything we've read, everything we've seen, is just going to be incredible. Like from the moment we started seeing, renderings and drawings and discussions around it, we were thrilled. Like, to shrink capacity, make it more of an intimate environment, just incredible. As we sit here, we've heard from a lot of listeners and a lot of people in the Northwestern community that they're seeing a lot of these bells and whistles, and are concerned that they're about to be priced out. Especially when you're coming off this past season with the lakefront field, where there were a lot of premium experiences, which a lot of people really enjoyed. But we also heard from a number of people who weren't able to get tickets in there because it was the pricing seemed a little odd. How do we, how can we communicate with the fans and make sure that everyone knows that there's going to be something for everyone in this new stadium?
Yeah, it's very important to us to make sure that, accessibility, right, is really important. And we are in the midst of a lot of work right now, looking at the demographics, looking at the survey studies that we've, I think, now accomplished 2 of those, looking at the data points coming off the lakefront, looking at the Wrigley price points, what sold, what didn't sell. There's a lot that goes in this, but to us as an athletic department, to the Ryan family, to our Northwestern community, we want everybody to enjoy this, right? We want the Evanston community to enjoy it. We want the Kellogg graduate student to enjoy it, our undergraduate students to enjoy it. We want to make it affordable. The one nice thing about going from Villanova Wildcats to Northwestern Wildcats is you can steal a lot of ideas. So one thing we did, through Villanova basketball was we created the Wild Club, right? And Wild stood for Wildcats in the last decade. So we targeted, alums that had just graduated in the last 10 years to how do we make it affordable, particularly when we were playing our downtown games at the Wells Fargo Center, where we were trying to fill an 18,000 seat basketball arena. We wanted to try and pack as many as we could. And similarly, we're reviewing similar concepts right now to create sort of a unique club experience for that demographic. So we want to pack the place in purple. And that starts with putting a really good competitive product on the field. We get that, right? That's the foolproof element, to get it all in purple. But also you have to make it affordable. And then you also have to compete with the living room, and you have to compete with the right sight lines. And we want to create, a pregame experience second to none, an in-game, post-game experience second to none. And, it's a broad demographic. When you look at Northwestern, how do you cater to all the different groups? So we're trying.
So true.
Yeah. Can we just say we're so happy to hear you talking about young alums, young alums, because those are a lot of the people we've heard from, and we're also super conscious of this unprecedented level of success hoops is having. And you look at all the students, and we're very conscious of they're about to become young alums, and we just feel like there's so much fuel for the fire there. So we just love hearing you say this.
No, yeah, and it's not, particularly I like to fundraise, so I'm out, and I say this all the time. This isn't about trying to gouge people when they're in their 20s and early 30s, as they get so much going on their plate. That'll come if you get them in their 20s and 30s with a really good program and a really good experience, where you just want them around, you want them connected, and because when they start having more success and things start settling down, then they'll come back and make a bigger commitment. But right now, we just got to get people around the program, and I don't care what it takes, and whether that's football or lacrosse or softball, or whether it's other events that we're going to do. We just want to bring people back of all ages, but particularly I think that demographic we can do a better job with.
We've been curious about kind of a related issue with that, which is we're conscious of listening, and you're talking about trying these new initiatives, looking at the data, and having to juggle all of these things at once. And kind of, I think from a lot of our listeners and a lot of the Northwestern fans we talk to, there's this specific challenge that I think, at least for people within, I guess, our Northwestern bubble, seems kind of specific to Northwestern, which is that balance between earning the ticket revenue and then creating an environment where Northwestern fans don't feel like guests at their own party, so to speak, right? The Ohio State Wrigley game this past year would be an example of that. And we're aware special circumstances, a unique landscape for this season and next season. But it's kind of like the Northwestern fan looks and says, hey, well, Wrigley is packed, but it's a massively Ohio State leaning crowd, and this is nominally our homecoming. And then there's that knock-on effect where Northwestern that discourages a Northwestern fan from going to the game. And like we said, we know you're early in your tenure here, and there are so many different things. But we just wondered about your thoughts. This challenge, finding this sweet spot where you've got a university where the opposing fan bases are so large, and how you kind of find that balance between meeting the ticket revenue, but also, like we said, not having Northwestern fans feel like they're guests at their own party.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there, and I'll be honest with you. I was forewarned about sort of what the stadium might look like, but while I was going through the interview process and the more research that I did, and um, so I kind of had it in the back of my mind. But after I think it was the Indiana game at the lakefront, I just remember walking back to my house. I live right on the edge of campus, and I was like, God, this just doesn't feel right. And how can we, take steps to improve it? And like I said, it starts with the product on the field so that people don't give up their tickets. And everybody faces unique sets of circumstances as to why they come to a game and why they don't come to a game. And when you're in a pro sports town that has such large alumni bases for the probably every other Big Ten school, their alumni base is bigger than ours in the city of Chicago. It makes it really, really hard. It's not unique, though. I happened to catch this stat yesterday. I don't know if you guys watched the Buffalo Rams game, but they flashed a stat at the beginning that 74,000 people in that stadium, 47% of them were Buffalo Bills fans, and it forced the Rams to go to a silent count. Believe it or not, in their home stadium, and and I know we felt that here as well. So create the kind of experience where people don't want to give up their ticket. They want to be there. They want to bring their young families. This will be a world-class experience. Nothing like it in sports, so whether it's the young family that wants to come and enjoy a football game, or whether it's the 20 to 30-year-olds that we talked about, whoever it is, and understand this too: for the first time in the history of college football, in the city of Chicago, there's a real premium product dedicated to football. So we hope that that's the right kind of hook where people aren't going to give up their tickets. People are going to want to invest in this, be around in it, immerse themselves in it, and not want to give it up. It's a big bet, when you're spending $850 million on a stadium, but we're gonna tell a really powerful story as this program improves too, and puts an exciting product on the field.
You were talking about the experience and talking about people not wanting to. You mentioned the Indiana game, and you also mentioned people not wanting to give up their tickets. The kind of carrot and stick aspect of incentivizing people, like you said, to keep their seats, but then also the piece relative to season ticket holders reselling tickets on the open market. And, this is something that within the Northwestern community has always been a sore spot. There are a couple different ways. The Indiana game would be a way that it pops up. There is a kind of like a I guess you could call it a joke amongst Northwestern basketball, and the Illinois game would be an example of this, that the seats between the announcers when the broadcast opens always seem to be populated by opposing fans. So the first thing Northwestern fans see at a game at Welsh Ryan is opposing fans seated between the announcers. But so it pops up a couple of different ways. And, we get that it's a big challenge. And like you said, like providing a great experience, that's the carrot part. And I don't know if there is a stick part or to what extent it can be enforced, but we're just curious about your thoughts on this particular part of kind of protecting that Northwestern fan experience.
Yeah, we're looking into all different kinds of options to create maybe more of a stick. It's really difficult to enforce, and we're not the only ones dealing with this issue. It's the only thing we keep coming back to is just put the best product on the field to make it foolproof, and that's not even foolproof. So there's that. There's the experiential piece. There's the affordability piece, loyalty rewards, things like that we're exploring. Nobody likes the feeling of it, but the facts, the numbers are the numbers too, and the demand is the demand. And when you're dealing with the best, college athletic conference in the country with these preeminent programs that have giant alumni bases based in Chicago, it's not easy to do. And then, also we do have to think about revenue, right? And so, one angle that is another important piece of this project is the corporate community of Chicago, right? When you think about the North Shore demographic, and there are so many CMOs and CEOs that live up this way, that are dying for an experience like this. I mean, college football is the number 2 most popular sport in the country, and the Big Ten is arguably the best conference in the country. That's a great combination for a corporation to come in and spend, and that's okay. Let's just make sure they're wearing purple, and because that revenue then in turn, guess what? That water falls down back into the program. Not only football, it impacts all of our programs. So yeah, we're going to do our best to pack it in purple and keep it in purple. But secondly, we need to drive revenue through this to make sure that we remain competitive with all of our programs across the board.
I think the example that kind of proves the potential of what you're talking about to a degree is the success we've seen at Welsh Ryan the last couple of years, and I think the three of us were marveling at what between the student turnout, just the presence that Boo Buie was as a part of that team, and what Collins was able to build over the last 2 seasons, created this incredible home court advantage and home experience that I don't think most Northwestern fans had ever really been a part of before. And when you're in Welsh Ryan for a sold out game, and there's always going to be some opposing fans, but it felt like a true home court advantage, and I think you saw that bear out in the record and the standings and the way Northwestern performed. And it kind of, I don't know, to me that's kind of the optimistic lens of everything you just said regarding football and the new stadium and the experience and the product on the field. And we've seen how it can come together. And I guess this is an opportunity to ask a little bit about your experience at Villanova and being a true basketball powerhouse. And now like a lot of schools get categorized: football school, basketball school. I think up until recent times, Northwestern would probably be in that football space, coming off of the 95 Rose Bowl and some of the successes, up and down as they have been, but the successes that have transpired over the last 20 years. This is, hopefully going forward, this is now a both school, right? And I, just wondering how you're thinking about that, and non-revenue sports fold into that as well. How do you kind of manage that perception for the institution holistically going forward?
Yeah, look, I believe strongly that we shouldn't and won't compare ourselves to anybody else. I think we're so unique because of all that we've talked about, right? This number 6 institution in the world academically. You look at the success of the academic programs across the board. You guys are all more connected to it than I am. You get Chicago, it's global. Northwestern resonates so well, so strongly. So, and granted, I have past experiences that I'll always lean on, but I think this is really unique to your point. Not only football, basketball, but the Olympic sport profile, the women's platform in terms of what our women's coaches and programs are doing. All that combined makes it uniquely Northwestern, and to do it in the best conference, most competitive conference in college athletics, wow, that to me gives us a chance to separate. Again, not losing sight of our mission, not losing sight of who we are, but all the right ingredients are there. And I'm motivated as well. That experience, Friday night, I was told it was going to be good and the energy was going to be high, and I know there were a lot of Illinois people in there, and it was okay. But the student section, and I've been to all the best arenas, through basketball. Fortunately, in my career, I've seen them all. I'll put it up against anybody, and it's starting to get a national reputation too. You guys have seen it, right? It's a really hard place to play. If you read the Illinois comments after the game, towards the end of that game, it was rocking in there and impacted things. So that gives me great confidence. Now we got a lot of work to do. When you're talking about 35,000 plus people to put in a stadium to create that environment, but it's there. We just gotta put everything together and align it the right way to bring it out in everybody.
You mentioned the women's sports, and something that has just been incredible at Northwestern is the tradition of the women's sports, from lacrosse, field hockey, 2 national championships in the past 4 years, 4 national championship appearances in a row. Softball has just been incredible, for a really, really long time. How do you continue to promote the women's sports, just showing this incredible product on the field, and now able to couple it with some really, really cool facilities? What's the next step? How far can we go with this?
I think there's just tremendous upside. You didn't mention our golf programs right there in the cusp.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Our women's
tennis
programs right there in the tennis. I mean, comprehensively, I'll put it up against anybody in the country. So yeah, it's really, really important to me to see all 19 of our sports compete to the best of their abilities. I certainly didn't take this job just to make sure football and men's basketball are okay. And I guess, on a daily basis, my feet are held to the fire, because I have a daughter that's a Division I student athlete. And I think about the progression of women's sports just in my lifetime and what it's meant, to me, what it's meant to her. And I've known Kelly Amante Hiller for most of my career. I was from Massachusetts. I was very familiar with her and her family, and they were unbelievable athletes when I was growing up. So Kelly's been an unbelievable resource for me. I tried stealing her to USC when we started a women's lacrosse program there. I did all I could to get her to come, and I didn't. But guess who I got was Lindsay Monday, one of the greatest to play for her as a Northwestern Wildcat. So, I've been connected to this, and then, Bill Belichick has been around the program too. I stay in touch with Bill. I don't know, it's got this uniqueness to it that has really separated itself. And my daughter's a softball player, and I wanted like heck for her to be good enough to get recruited by Kate, and she wasn't. So I give Kate a hard time about that now. And then the transfer portal after her undergrad, and she ended up, now she's playing at Caroline. So I've admired the Drohans from a distance for a long, long time, and they've taught me so much. And then to get to go through this experience with Tracy and get to know her over the last few months, I mean, I'm leaning on them, you guys, like just for everything, culture, commitment. How do you do this? What kind of kid do you recruit? How do they manage the academics and compete the best in the world? And you think about Zimmer and Sess, and these are Olympians, the best in the world, and we get to watch them every day. That's just 2, and there's a whole pipeline of kids that
we were joking so
I just
much
love
that we were joking so much that the field hockey world, I don't know to what extent the rest of the field hockey world was aware that Maddie Zimmer was going to come back for another year, and we just can only imagine just how much it must have broken them to be like, nope.
Yeah, that's it.
She's back. We were so you teed us up for something that we really wanted to ask you. One of the last things that we wanted to bring up with you, just because we think it's amazing, and we just find it fantastic that you bring up your relationship with Coach Amante Hiller, because you mentioned Tracy Fuchs, you mentioned Kate Drohan, and we don't want to give short shrift to them, nor to someone like notably Jay Wright, who you have also worked closely with. These are championship coaches, championship excellence at the highest level. It occurred to us, though, that you in particular have worked with 3 individuals, and that is Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, and now Kelly Amante Hiller, who have been a part of, this math could be off, we think it's 39 national titles or NCAA conference championships between those 3 individuals alone. And we're just curious. We know you know all of these people very well, these titanic legends of coaching. If we take those 3, what are there common characteristics you see across them? Like when you're up next to the absolute legends of coaching like that, are there common threads you see running through them? And then between those 3, are there particular differences that make each one unique?
Yeah, I love this question, and I've been asked it quite a few times, and because it's such a really good lesson for all of us. I don't care what field you're in or what you're doing or where you're at with your life. And I try and tell my own kids this, right? So I have 4 kids that are 17 to like 23, and they're at this cool stage of life where, it kind of mirrors what I'm doing at work. And whether it's Kelly, whether it's Pete, Jay, take your pick, these Hall of Fame coaches, Bill, they all know exactly who they are, and it's authentic. It's truly them, and that doesn't come easily. I'm around coaches a lot that one day want to try and be like Bill, one day they want to be like Kelly, one day they want to be like Pete, maybe. And but with those caliber coaches, it's more than a team. It's a complete program that has the answers to everything based on who they are. And when you're leaning on who you are, you may not win every game, but you're going to come back to the truth about what you're about, and there's an authenticity in that that I think is invaluable. And that's why it's so important for us to like really zero in on. It took me a while to figure it out. Did I want to be a GM? Did I want to be a coach in the NFL? Did I want to be an athletic director? Did I want to like chase money, chase championships? What is it? And we all go through it. And it wasn't until I had tried a bunch of different things and really started to get zeroed in. And I used Pete has been my greatest influence in my career. He kept talking about his lonely work. And if you remember Pete, right? So when I met Pete, he had been fired from the Jets, and then he got fired from the Patriots. This is by the time he's 46 years old. And I remember vividly, we had this great conversation. He said he had read John Wooden's book, Reflections on and Off the Court. And he got to the point in the book where he realized that it took John Wooden 17 years as a head coach before he won his first national championship. And then he went on to win 11 out of the next 12. But it was at that point, Pete slammed the book shut and said, I'm probably going to get one more chance at this to be a head coach again. I'm going to figure myself out. And he wrote and he wrote and he wrote exactly what his program was going to look like. And then he took that, what he did with his lonely work, and he implemented it at USC. And I got to see that unfold. And he kept coming to me like, when are you going to do your lonely work? And I kept kind of putting it off. And finally I did it. And, we develop our own leadership philosophies and styles. So it's a long-winded answer to just, I think they all have an authentic leadership style that embodies who they are as people. And I'll add one other thing too, because we're doing a lot of year-end evaluation stuff with football, and I'm meeting with a lot of kids who have exhausted their eligibility, and there is that consistency with Dave Braun, although he's been a head coach only for a couple of years. Like, he's very, very authentic, and you can't BS these kids 18 to 23 years old, and that's a common theme that's come out over the last week or so about his authenticity and how much he cares for his players.
Wow, that's I wish you could just keep talking about these coaches for another hour. But you've been so generous with your time, Mark. We appreciate so much the time you spent with us tonight. We kind of have one last thing we wanted to throw out there for you, and not necessarily to put you on the spot, but like, we are by no means the foremost experts on Northwestern fandom, et cetera. But if there's any questions or anything you're curious about, either from us or to hear from our listeners, just from the general NU fan base, to help you just kind of acclimate and understand more about the school and the fan base, et cetera. Like what are you looking to hear from us?
Yeah, I think it's just that. Like, how do we build programs and experiences that just draw people back to anything, and it certainly football, and we'll put a lot of thought into that around this investment we're making, but just generally over the course of, a calendar year, how can we engage? And look, I'm going to be on the road a lot. I'm going to, all these different cities, and the expansion of the Big Ten is going to allow us, like, for instance, we went to Washington, right, and had 1,100 Wildcats at a tailgate before that game was an unbelievable experience. Like, where are those opportunities, either off campus or on campus, to bring people together? And it's not just about fundraising and raising dollars. It's about creating an experience and a camaraderie and a connection that brings us all together. So I'm open to any and all of those ideas, whether it's from our current students, whether it's most recently graduated. Another example that we're putting some teeth into is, like, why aren't we having a preseason basketball celebration to kick off the season? Like, I know this isn't like groundbreaking, but like, we have so much momentum around the Welsh Ryan environment to create, an on-campus experience for our students, like second to none, something they'll remember forever when they graduate, that they did that for 4 years. And there's a way to do that with musical acts and create energy. And so that's one example of an undergraduate student experience. How do we better connect to the Kellogg's and the School of Medicine, the School of Law? There's thousands of these brilliant people, that I don't know how engaged they are. I'm going to find out, but that there's programming in that we can figure out to tap into. So I don't know, it's probably a long-winded answer, but I just want to build connections to let people know that our doors are open in the athletic department. Like, I want us to be forward facing. I want us to have connectivity with our entire community. And we don't pretend to have all the answers, and we're gonna get some things wrong, but I do want transparency. I want to be overly communicative, and connect. So that's what I love about this job, the people that I get to meet. So I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but
Well, I think one thing that you'll probably find pretty quickly is that there's Northwestern alums everywhere. I mean,
yeah.
you get all of the other Big Ten schools in the area, with the West Coast schools as an exception, but everyone all of those alums stay in the region for the most part, but Northwestern alums go everywhere. So it's not surprising to hear how many Northwestern fans went to Seattle. I mean, we're going to see a huge turnout when football goes to play USC, UCLA. I mean, the Northwestern fan base does show out for monumental, for big events, and I think
no question.
Yeah, it's just the making that happen, and we are so excited to kind of see where things go, and we're very much anticipating 2026. So that's going to be a whole lot of fun. Really, really appreciate you taking the time tonight. Thank you so much. You've been more than generous with your time, and again, thank you, and we will definitely have to catch up with you soon.
Hey, I want to thank you guys again too. Like I said, I know how loyal you've been, and you truly care. You want to see us have success, and I know that doesn't come easy. And you constructively help us build this, and sometimes that means criticism or shooting us straight. But I know you guys have been on the front lines of doing some great work. So I'm genuinely grateful, and please know my door is always open to you.
Thank you. We really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Once again, Mark Jackson, athletic director, Northwestern. My God, wow! Like,
that was a really great conversation, and just obviously his experience, the experience perspective he's bringing to Northwestern is top notch, and I think we couldn't be more excited about some of the things that we heard from Mark tonight. And I think we've always felt the future is bright at Northwestern, but this is it's pretty exciting to hear directly from him on so many of these topics that give us and so many other fans like worries and we love the school, we love these teams, we want to see them do well, and whether it's the portal or NIL or a bad season, etc. Like, it's ticket prices, these things are the things we talk about amongst our friends and fellow alumni, and it's really great to be able to hear directly from him on so many of these different topics and how they're thinking about things.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear someone who's so forward thinking and so embracing of new ideas, being like I want to try this, I want to try this, at a time when, as you just alluded, the landscape is so crazy and so unsettled right now, and that to be juggling all of those things, to have all those spinning plates, and at the same time be like, but I want to try this, I want to try this. I think we were all super stoked to hear about, him, whether it's importing an idea from Villanova or just general, but like an initiative specifically targeting young alums. We think that's fantastic. Obviously, like, I think we all know, and we've talked about it on the pod before, that there have been times where the young alums were some of the people who kind of felt frozen out by the ticketing on the Lakeside Field this year. And they're like, just to hear not only someone being like, we have to do things, but to someone to be like, here's an idea I plan on trying. We're going to try to do this kind of thing. And that's awesome, because it's one thing to say, hey, we need to deliver a good product and, put butts in the seats and that kind of thing. But when someone's coming in and saying, and I want to try this, and I want to try this, like, that's awesome. Great. Absolutely. Try it. And Northwestern fans will be here for you on all of it. So, yeah, fantastic.
I want to give a quick shout out and thank you to Sean Dennison, Assistant Athletic Director Sean Dennison, who helped connect us to Mark and make this happen tonight. Fellow hockey fanatic, I might throw in there, but regardless, this was a really fun one to do.
We'll be back a little bit later on in the week with kind of a recap of this past week in basketball, because
it was
Iowa,
a fun one.
Illinois, there were a lot of emotions.
Yeah,
and,
that's true.
That Illinois win was tremendous. So without giving it the short shrift of following that interview, we're going to come back later on in the week with that. We'll go ahead and leave it for tonight. Head to our website, westlawpirates.com, where you can leave comments and questions. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube at Westlaw Pirates, and email the show, westlawpirates@gmail.com. Tune in next time as we give our visceral and statistical views on Northwestern athletics. Look for us in the west lot of Ryan Field flying the red pirate flag, because we give no quarter, especially the fourth. For John Lacombe and Eric Scousbo, I'm Sam Walter. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.